Hello and welcome to Comic Island. My name is Arden, and this is my recap and review of The Amazing Spider-Man #1. So, we have a fun new comic to review today, and I am really impressed by how much I enjoyed it. I was a little skeptical because I really didn't know what to anticipate out of Nick Spencer. Secret Empire isn't exactly the best advertisement for the guy as a writer, but he did do Superior Foes of Spider-Man, and that was a great series, genuinely funny with some of the most hilarious moments I've ever read in any comic book, and just written with a lot of sincerity and fun for some of the lesser-known enemies in Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery. But now he's taking over as the writer for Marvel's flagship Spider-Man series, and he kicks things off with a real bang. Already it begins with a lot of fun when we are introduced to Spider-Man's new roommates, Robbie Robinson and none other than Boomerang. It's kind of a fun little dynamic, and it's a nice way for Nick Spencer to sort of bring in some of the fun characters that he had during the Superior Foes of Spider-Man story. On the whole, that's a pretty great start, but things only get better from there. We watch as Spider-Man deals with an alien invasion, although the truth behind that story is a really good twist I won't give away here, but a nice little way to kick things off. Meanwhile, in Peter's personal life, he starts out this story working as the science reporter for the Daily Bugle, or whatever form they currently exist under, before a new anti-plagiarism software detects that some of Peter's academic writings are a direct ripoff of work done by Otto Octavius. Now we, and Peter of course, know that that isn't actually his fault. He was controlled by Octavius when those papers were written, and thus, it is an actual plagiarism. But nevertheless, Peter's doctorate and dissertation are officially recognized as plagiarism, and he can't exactly explain what happened to him, so he's fired from his job and is basically considered a fraud. It's an interesting way to kick things off, a genuine problem from his past that could actually tamper his reputation so badly that he isn't gonna easily be able to get a job like he usually is. That's pretty clever writing, and that really hits home when Aunt May hears the news and is basically truly disappointed in Peter. After all, she doesn't know any of his secrets, so he can't explain it to her like that. And the last time she saw Octavius, he almost died trying to save her life. So she's going to be very sympathetic to the man, especially considering how Peter has constantly and always spoken against him. For good reason, but, you know, it doesn't look good for him. So we're left with a situation where Peter is not only feeling guilty and kind of down, but it actually feels natural. Earned based on the situation around him, and done in an interesting way. Yes, none of the plagiarism stuff is technically his fault, but as he directly acknowledges, when he got his body back, he discovered that degree that Octavius had earned, and didn't do a thing about it. And I kind of get where he's coming from, even if it wouldn't have been too easy for him to actually do something about it. He could have disowned the doctorate and said he didn't deserve it, or something. And while it's kind of unfair to beg him of that, I understand why Peter feels this way. It's a feeling, it doesn't have to be rational, but the feeling itself makes sense. I can understand why a person would feel guilty about something even though it's not entirely their fault, because theoretically, if they were truly, a perfect person, they would have done something about it to be more honest about the fact that he didn't deserve this doctorate. So we're left with a moment where Tony Stark is disappointed, as well as the rest of the superhero community. Wilson Fisk, current mayor of New York City, gives Peter Parker the key to the city and is starting to be really nice to Spider-Man. Not because he suddenly likes or has an appreciation for the guy, but because he specifically wants to isolate the hero. It's a bit of a childish moment in terms of writing that all the other superheroes suddenly don't like Spider-Man because Wilson Fisk is showing favoritism to him at a time when he's cracking down on all the other superheroes. Like, they should know Spider-Man better than that, and they should see through Kingpin's behavior when he does something with one of his biggest enemies. But I kind of get it. Spider-Man's very private about his secret identity, and as such, they don't know this hero like they used to. And it's not like the heroes are outright furious with him, they're just annoyed with him. So I kind of am giving Nick Spencer the benefit of the doubt there. And that kind of gets into the ending of this comic, which is the real sign that this is going to be a good run with Spider-Man. Because there was never that much wrong with Dan Slott's run in terms of Spider-Man. He would fight villains, there would be goofy moments, and Peter Parker would have a changing personal life that he had to struggle with and deal with, even as it went in new and interesting directions, with Peter being a CEO or working at Horizon Labs. It was good stuff. The problem was, Peter was alone in all of it. He didn't have people he could rely on and talk to. He didn't have someone to love. So there wasn't a lot of heart to the story. And that might sound hokey, but it really matters for Spider-Man, as it turns out, because this was my biggest and most recurring problem with Dan Slott writing Spider-Man. Nick Spencer almost immediately has Mary Jane return to the fold. Not in a romantic sense, at least not at first, where they kind of are just more of working as best friends with each other. Peter tells her about his current problems with the whole plagiarism thing, and she laughs in his face. Not to be mean, but because his life is so ridiculous. Who else can claim a problem like that other than Peter Parker? And it's nice because Peter has someone to talk to about all of this stuff. This is a nice aspect of Spider-Man Homecoming in the form of a much younger and platonic friend with Ned. But with Mary Jane, there's more to it than that, and it's something the comic kind of acknowledges right away. Peter can sense something is missing even if he doesn't fully remember why that is. But at the end of the comic, he finally does realize what is missing, and for once, actually confronts the issue. Approaches Mary Jane, and the two kiss. Thank you. And before we give too much credit to Nick Spencer or throw too much shade at Dan Slott, it should be noted this was the one specific thing Dan Slott wasn't allowed to do when he was running Spider-Man. We're just finally getting to a point where Marvel is letting them do the right thing. We don't have to undo or relitigate one more day, and I'm kind of glad that they aren't. We're going to have them start off with a relationship again. Are they going to get married? Are they going to have kids? Who cares? Let's not rush into things. That's what they did the first time around with Mary Jane, and that was part of the problem. They sort of just impulsively decided to get the two married, and there wasn't enough development or lead up to it. Mary Jane would go on to become a great partner to Spider-Man, but that was on the other side of the wedding. Character development and depth given to her over time that simply just wasn't there at first. But we can start over. They can start to get into a relationship and get comfortable with each other once more without us having to rush or jump into anything. It's an interesting dynamic too, seeing two people that know each other very well and have had this long relationship with each other start over again. That is a little different than the kind of relationship stuff we usually get in comic book fiction, especially with superheroes. So I'm optimistic about all of it. Ryan Ottley from the series Invincible does such great work here. With Cliff Rathburn filling in the inks and Laura Martin doing colors, this is a phenomenal looking book and really impressed me on the whole. It's not just the great superhero action and big sprawling pages of the Avengers and just about every other superhero fighting aliens off in New York City. It's the personal scenes where Peter Parker and Mary Jane or him and Aunt May are talking to each other that are really well done and super interesting. This was a phenomenal read from start to finish. And then after Peter and MJ kind of start their relationship up again, we got some very interesting setup to some new stories with new characters, stuff involving Mysterio and the Lizard, and on the whole, it just seems like we're in for a great treat. At least a solid step forward back towards what the Spider-Man comics should be and haven't for years and years now. It didn't have to be this way, as I've said over and over again. We didn't have to bring back Mary Jane, but we needed something, and this is a great something to get. So, check out this comic if you haven't yet. I highly recommend it. And let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. Thanks for watching, and if you like Comic Island, check out our Patreon page in the video description below. There's all kinds of cool perks and stuff you can do if you're a patron. Finally, don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep reading comics.